Hello, friends and fellow lovers of all things beachy. Welcome to The Beach Speaks, the podcast that shares stories about the beach and our connection to it. I'm your host and beach lover, Paige Friend, helping you reconnect with the beach, return to your soul, and reimagine your life. So grab a cool drink, relax in your beach chair, stick your toes in the sand, and enjoy this episode of The Beach Speaks. Hey, beach lover. I re-listened to my latest episode with my guest Jenny, and as she told her story about collecting sand, my mind kept returning to that word, sand. Sand. Should I talk about sand in my next episode? I could, but not that I don't have anything against sand. I mean, I love it. But for this episode, I wanted to talk about something different. But what? Typically, when an idea comes to me, I immediately speak into the notes app on my phone or type a few words into the computer because for me, when I get an idea, it's like a wave in the ocean. As swiftly as it comes in, if I don't capture it right then, it's going right back into the ocean. Lost forever. So I started combing through my podcast story bank, sifting through the vast and not very well organized collection of notes and ideas, looking at the scattering of words tossed on the page like shells washed up on the sand, and started thinking about what I like to collect at the beach and why. One of my favorite books is Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. I love that it's a short book, only 130 pages or so, but it's packed full of beachy wisdom. Each chapter is named after a single shell that Anne sees on her solitary beach walks, and I can imagine her as she picks up one to reflect on its shape and design and how it relates to her life. While each chapter is just about that one shell, when put together, it becomes a collection of shells, of ideas and memories, all contained in book form. I think it's a brilliant example of how to organize your thoughts, especially if you're a beach lover. I keep a copy on my desk and page through it every once in a while when my thoughts are scattered and I feel like I need some clarity. I only need to read a page or two before I feel like I'm on a leisurely beach walk, putting all thoughts aside, focusing my mind on that one shell, that one idea that speaks to me. And one of the quotes of many in the book that I love is, "One cannot collect all the beautiful shells on the beach. One can only collect a few. One moon shell is more impressive than 3. There's only one moon in the sky." What I read in those words is, there's beauty in simplicity. That one simple, beautiful shell can be more impressive than a whole mass of them. It makes you think of that one singular message that the beach wants us to hear. I never gave up on the idea of decorating something with shells, but I really didn't have much of a collection until I started picking up shells on my weekend Serenity beach walks on the Gulf Shore near where my parents lived. I'd bring a small bag full back to my landlocked condo in Orlando, and I would wash them off and lay them out on a beach towel. This time, no clear nail polish, no paper towels. And I'd think, I'm going to shell dazzle my house. I arranged them so that wherever I was in the apartment, there would be shells, lying around like they would be on the beach. I picked out some various shells, bleached white, brown and tan, striped, and faded pink, and arranged them in an S-curve pattern along the length of my dining room table, kind of like a table runner. And on my shelf above the kitchen sink and a small round end table at the top of the stairs, I placed a couple of white conch shells about the size of my hand. I carefully picked out a handful of miniature shells, the pink and white ones that look like angel wings, about the size of my thumbnail, and arranged them in a heart shape around my jewelry box by my mirror. I even had shells scattered in the corner of my bathroom next to my toothbrush holder. It made me happy, and it reminded me of those beach walks. Often, when the tide is low, there would be large patches of tiny shells, thousands of shells washed up on the beach from the shoreline up to the dunes in some spots. I would think, this is so fabulous. I can collect a huge bucketful and put them in pretty jars with sand or give them away to my friends, and all kinds of ideas running through my brain until I have to press pause on more is better. I already have plenty of shells now, and switch to more giving. Every January, I attend a global podcast conference called PodFest. And I love it because I get to make new podcast friends and learn about what's new in the world of podcasting. And it's in Florida. This year, I was trying to come up with something fun that I could hand out instead of business cards. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I gave out shells with "The Beach Speaks" written on them? But since I came up with the idea kind of last minute, I had no time to write all that businessy card stuff on hundreds of shells. So at the event, I dressed up in my most beachy outfit, introduced myself, and then instead of a card, I reached into my beach bag, pulled out a shell, and said, "It's so nice to meet you. Here's a little piece of my beach." Everyone loved the idea. I went to a pop-up event for local artisans and businesses here at the beach a few weekends ago, talking to vendors about the podcast, when I met a woman whose business card was a shell. She painted them with beachy watercolors like coral pink, aquamarine, and turquoise blue, and on the top of the shell in thin white paintbrush script was her shop name, Fantasy, S-E-A, Art, and on the inside the words "Follow me," along with her Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok handles in teeny tiny letters. I don't know how she did it. I would have needed a microscope. So when I got home from the pop-up, I got out some paint and a handful of shells thinking, oh, these shells are so pretty. I definitely want to give them away. I just don't want to paint them. I don't want to make them anything more than what they are. I'll pass on decorating the shell idea. It feels better to give them away as they are in their natural beauty. And I can truly say, here's a little piece of my beach. That brings me to another thought. Is it really right to take anything from the beach? Shells, driftwood, rocks, sand? No beach lover wants to intentionally disrupt the ecosystem. I don't know, to me, if you're collecting small amounts for keepsakes or small art projects, I don't think it's so bad. In Florida, some wildlife preserves ban all forms of shell collecting, and then there are some places like Sanibel, an island on the southern Gulf Coast of Florida that's world famous for beachcombing. Basically, if there's a sign saying, "Don't take anything off the beach," then don't. I try to curtail my shell collecting, but every once in a while I'll pick up a few that catch my eye and that have a particular meaning. I think of it as a form of mindful collecting. But even so, I have caught myself on many a meditation walk along the beach, picking up a shell here and there, and by the end of my walk, my hands and my pockets are completely full. On one of my early morning beach walks, I was so excited to see dozens of small conch shells washed up on the sand, about the size of my palm, with no holes, perfectly intact, which is difficult to find. The thing is, when I picked one up, there was still a living creature inside. And I was thinking, oh no, I cannot take this. And then, what do I do with it? Do I leave it stranded in the sand or put it back in the water? My first instinct was to take it to the water's edge and gently toss it into the water. And when I did, I felt immediate remorse because did I toss it too hard? Was it hurt? Maybe it didn't want to be in the water. Maybe it was on the sand because it needed a rest from being pushed around in the waves. I was really overthinking this. I asked a few nearby beach walkers if they knew what the proper live shell etiquette was, and no one had an answer. And my conscience wouldn't let me off the hook. I just had to know for sure. So I Googled it. Is it okay to place a live shell back in the water or leave it on the beach? The first thing I read, always put the shell back where you found it by gently placing it on the sea floor. Take the time to wade out past where the waves are breaking against the shore and place them in the water. Or leave them on the beach for the birds and other creatures. It's not a good thing to disrupt Mother Nature. Do not throw shells back into the sea, as this will cause injury and probable death, says Kathleen Hoover of the Shell Museum in Sanibel, Florida. Oh God, I hope that poor creature I tossed back into the ocean survived. Now I had an answer to what do I do with a live shell question. There was another question bothering me. Is it illegal to take shells from the beach? So I did a little more research, and I'll put the links to some helpful articles in the show notes. Is it illegal to take shells from the beach? I typed into my computer. And the answer I got back basically was collecting seashells is generally allowed on public beaches and shoreline areas as long as the shells have no living creatures within them. The same shelling rules apply to starfish, sand dollars, and sea urchins in many areas. If the creature is alive, leave it alone. Some state and federal beaches have more restrictive regulations than others regarding collecting sea life. In some cases, local police may even cite or fine anyone found in violation of shell collecting regulations. So the best rule of thumb is to simply not take any shell or water-based object that appears to be or to contain a living creature. Okay, I feel a little better now. Sometimes when I go for a beach walk and there doesn't seem to be much in the way of collecting, I'll ask the beach to surprise me, and it almost always does. Like when I noticed pieces of something yellow sticking out of the sand, and as I got closer, I discovered they were yellow long-stem roses that had washed up on the shore. I assumed they were probably from a wedding or special event the night before, maybe thrown into the ocean as a ritual or remembrance. I stopped to take pictures, of course, and that's when I met Buddy. He was an older man, speed walking along the water's edge when he saw me taking pictures of the roses. He stopped and said, "I was wondering if anybody noticed those roses or if it was just me," and he proceeded to show me his photos. We ended up finishing our walk together, bonding over shared stories of recently losing loved ones and how walking the beach was our way of finding peace and comfort. We've since lost touch, but every once in a while he'll send me a sunset photo from that spot on the beach with a message saying, "Your beach says hello." When Ernie and I had our wedding on the beach in the rain, we passed around a basket of shells for everyone to hold during the ceremony, and at the end, everyone rushed to the water's edge, because now it was really raining, and tossed the shells into the ocean in honor of our connection to each other, to the beach and the ocean. If I had to name my most treasured beach collection, it would be all the photographs and videos I take at the beach, most at sunrise or sunset, and of course when there's something interesting about a particular beach I've visited, or those special times on the beach with family and friends. In episode 61, Lost and Found at the Beach, I tell my tragic story of losing my iPhone with all my 49,000 pictures and videos while kayaking in the ocean. I thought this tragic experience was uniquely mine until I recently met a fellow beach lover, Brian Collins, who also lost his phone while ocean kayaking, except he turned his tragedy into a business called Dry Pocket Apparel. It's a pretty cool concept, the kind of thing you'd see on Shark Tank. But that's all I'm going to say about it, because Brian is coming up on a future episode to tell us all about it. This now has me thinking about what we lose at the beach and the things we leave behind. Some quite mundane, like sunglasses and flip-flops, and some things more valuable, like jewelry, phones, or cameras. And then there are just some things that are plain odd. Some of the odd things I found on the beach have been a bit disturbing. Once on an early morning beach walk, instead of enjoying the sunrise, Ernie and I started picking up random pieces of trash that were close to being pulled into the ocean with the tide, and right in front of us was a full-blown hibachi grill with the food still on it, and an unopened package of raw chicken, plates, napkins, and barbecue tongs, silverware, all strewn around, even a full container of lighter fluid, right there, just one wave away from being swept up into the ocean. It looked like someone had started a barbecue and then ran away. While others on the beach just walked around the stuff like it wasn't there, we were frantically grabbing everything we could before the waves came in. There's a variety of local organizations here that periodically host volunteer Sunday morning beach cleanups. And we like to do our part when we can, so after our cup of morning coffee, Ernie and I will ride our bikes over to the designated area of the beach, pick up one of the 5-gallon buckets donated by Lowe's or Home Depot, and scour the shoreline for stuff that's been left behind. You know, the usual, like plastic bottles and bags, red Solo cups, empty bags of Doritos, and plastic dollar store beach toys. Oh, and cigarette butts. So many cigarette butts. I always feel sad and a bit frustrated at the start of a cleanup, thinking, why do people leave all this trash? Don't they care? But I know at the end, when I return to the collection site and empty out my bucket, I feel better, knowing I did a little something. But recently, July 5th to be exact, it was a lot of something. The day after a holiday, there's always a volunteer cleanup planned, because even though the city trash collectors empty the cans and pick up all the big stuff late at night, there's always stuff left over in the morning. They can't get it all. So at sunrise, after our cup of coffee, Ernie and I biked to the collection point, and when a volunteer handed me a huge orange commercial-sized trash bag, I immediately felt dread. This was no 5-gallon bucket kind of cleanup. Was there really that much to pick up? I could feel my heartbeat rising in my chest as I descended the wooden walkway leading to the beach. I stopped short at the end to survey the damage. It didn't look too bad, But as soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped out onto the sand, right at my feet were remnants of fireworks. They were everywhere, even in the dunes, and you're not supposed to be in the dunes. It was high tide, so we started in the soft sand at the edge of the dunes with focused determination, gathering what we could, not just the usual plastic bottles and grocery bags and leftover fireworks, but toys, random flip-flops, and kids' t-shirts and bathing suit bottoms. We even found a large wet beach blanket. I felt so frustrated and angry because for as much as we collected, even more probably got swept away in the tide. We only got about 1/10 of a mile down the beach before our bags were full. Mine was so heavy I had to drag it across the sand to the collection point. But as heavy as the bag was, it didn't even match the weight of sadness in my heart. Sometimes we lose things on the beach or accidentally leave something behind. It happens. But why do people have to be so careless with their trash? What is so difficult about picking it up and putting it in the trash can? I felt like I had let the beach down, that I didn't do enough. Then the beach spoke to me. Paige, some people just don't get it, but you do, and I'm grateful for that. I hope something I said today resonated with you. I'm curious, what unusual thing have you found on the beach? Let me know. The beach and I really appreciate all the voicemails and reviews. I can't wait to share them with you in a future episode. The beach is speaking. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Beach Speaks. If you liked what you heard, share the podcast with another beach lover. And speaking of sharing, I want to know how the beach is speaking to you. To record a message, just go to my website, thebeachspeaks.com, click the voicemail button, it's super easy, and I'll play it on the show. And if more beach is what you crave, visit thebeachspeaks.com or follow The Beach Speaks on Facebook and Instagram, where I post all my gorgeous sunrise photos and videos. It's another way for you to reconnect with the beach, return to your soul, and reimagine your life. The beach is speaking. Are you listening?